My name is Katherine Stockton. I am a poet and playwright based in London, and I wrote Colloquium.
And hi, my name is Charles Douglas. I'm a freelance theatre director based in London, and I have directed Colloquium. So, Katie, I have a few questions for you. I'd like to know what influenced you to write Colloquium?
Big question. It's a piece that has been within me for a while, so quite a few years now. The sort of nexus was definitely when I watched The History Boys by Alan Bennett and became very intrigued by the ideas of education and educators being sort of almost performers, and that they have different roles inside the classroom to outside the classroom. And then I went to university, and during my studies, I became more and more interested, but also involved myself in the themes of academia and education. And sort of chasing the idea of chasing the will-o-wisp of being educated or academic. Like, for example, I realized that it's pretty much impossible to be well read nowadays because we have such a cornucopia of texts out there, so it's impossible to like master them all and understand every reference in academia, etc. So when I began to struggle myself with these ideas of like performing academia and performing being clever and intelligent, I think the idea was that the play was brewing within me. And then I did my master's, and that's when I started to write it. And I was very much surrounded in my master's by people who'd experienced the same struggles as me, whether it be in seminar or interview or lecture. The idea of feeling remote or alienated by an academic environment. And that is sort of the long drawn out process of birthing Colloquium, very much inspired by my own academic journey.
Lovely. So, Colloquium originally had its first kind of iteration at where you did your master's at University of East Anglia. How have you found the journey from then, between the original iteration to now?
I think the main thing that's changed is that when I was writing it, I was still in education. And because I was still in it, I was definitely still, in a way, romanticizing it, and have that fear of post-grad job life, as in post-grad job life, and leaving this sort of nurturing bubble of being able to prove all the time that you are clever through assessments and meeting people, etc. But then when I left university for good and I started being in the working world, my perspective on those kinds of places and environments shifted. So the romanticism kind of dropped completely. And from that, the play really took on more of its like emotional moments. It started off very much as a farce and a satire, but when I had distance from the environment I was in and was able to look back on it, I wanted to write more character driven emotional moments, which is definitely what is seeded in from maybe like the first third onwards in the play. And I would say that that is the major change.
Lovely. And my final question for you is simply, what do you hope audiences take away from this?
I would hope that they understand that, oh, it's difficult to pinpoint one thing. I would hope they understand that imposter syndrome is very much never goes away, I think, is what I've been told and what I've experienced. And sort of similar aphorisms to that, as in like intelligence is subjective, and that you're not never smart enough, and that these hoops that people are made to jump through will always make you feel like a lesser like a lesser brain or a lesser working brain, and there's always gonna be someone who's better than you, and to not lose your like identity and spark to that quite rigorous crushing environment that a lot of us go through. So it would be kind of those happy-go-lucky aphorisms that you hear, hopefully trotted out in quite a meaningful, serious way. In that I know that those kind of things, like there's always going to be someone better than you, and only compete with yourself, not someone else, can be quite cliched, but I think lots of them hold some deep truth, and that's what I'm hoping to show through my characters, who are at once viciously intelligent and still struggling like the rest of us would be. I have
Hello.
some questions for you as well. I would love to know what drew you to directing Colloquium.
So I was fortunate enough to see the original version of Colloquium, and I really loved it. I think the one line that stays with me is learnable, not teachable. And I think from then, a lot of my opinions of education, and in particular the education system, and how we're taught and being told to kind of memorize instead of really think for ourselves, has inspired me to kind of talk about that socio-political issue. I found the concept and the writing the most interesting part. For me, coming from a state school, the Oxbridge life and experience was always portrayed as this like kind of mythical, impossible to reach entity, which I and other classmates were actively encouraged to not consider, despite being, you know, top set, which again has its own problems in itself. But that was the experience I had growing up in a state school in Norfolk, and I know that was the same experience that a lot of other people I met had as well. So for me as a director and a creative, I was just really curious and excited to explore those kind of circumstances that lead to people like myself and others being told that, and the mindsets that are kind of allowed to grow in the environment that promote the kind of mindsets that Oxbridge Life seems to promote. And then once we've kind of fleshed all of that out, just make fun of it and just keep poking fun at it and realize it's not that serious.
Great. Yeah. What have been the challenges or advantages of directing online, and how have you overcome the challenges?
So I think challenges are always, for me, in terms of doing online, is not being in the same space together and not being able to do certain exercises and just explore the room and explore each other. I feel like body language and sharing a space and sharing an environment are so important when rehearsing a play. And it's always difficult to adjust, especially to this kind of alien format that is digital theatre. But actually, I've had a really positive experience with it. Because I feel like it's only a very temporary thing, so we should embrace it. I don't think there's any reason to kind of shy away from it. I think you just got to throw yourself into it. And when you find the problems, just understand that they're quite simple to overcome as long as we're all honest with each other. So Zoom fatigue is a very real thing that we all understand. Making sure that rehearsals are just a couple of hours long, regular breaks, and again, just being open and honest about the situation that we're all in, really, is the way that I've tried to overcome those challenges. But then that brings kind of light moments to it. The challenge of having to create your own DIY film studio is one thing that we all had a great fun time sorting out. And I think this year of digital theatre has just allowed, in my opinion, like the development of this exciting medium. It promotes accessibility for so many creatives, especially outside of London, because it feels like the London theatre scene is just kind of the overall place to be, and it's nice to know that that's not the case. And I do think there is a place for digital theatre, and I really hope it doesn't go away completely.
Absolutely. What has the experience of directing new writing been like for you?
It's been brilliant. I love working with new writing, and especially for Colloquium as well. Me personally, I love being able to be a part of creating something, but being there from day one and having this collaborative nature throughout the process. It just feels like we're all in the same boat, and kind of demolishes this sense of hierarchy, in my opinion, which just makes a nicer environment when we're all trying to figure out what it is we want to tell. You know, we all in rehearsals were talking about our experiences and talking about the rumors we heard, which I know then influenced into the script. Like I said to you, a couple of questions that I had found in the Oxbridge interview, that is.
100%,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just brilliant. I really like it, like working with new writers, because it means that we're all there. You know, we might disagree on some things, but ultimately we all have the same shared goal. And working with you especially has been brilliant, and allowing that communicative, productive, and enjoyable experience to come through. So that has been my experience with working with new writing.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like being a new writer in a rehearsal process is also extremely valuable. Not just for, as you were saying, the idea of me like magpieing other people's experiences as we talk about them in the room, but you get to meet people who are so like-minded, and it can be a really enjoyable experience.